The situation in Syria is developing along the worst-case scenario for President Assad, after the swift fall of the country's second-largest city, Aleppo. With almost no resistance, the next major city, Hama, located to the south on the way to the capital Damascus, also collapsed in a similar fashion.
Seizing the momentum, jihadist rebel groups led by HTS have advanced several miles toward the strategic city of Homs and are preparing to encircle it after capturing Aleppo and Hama in less than a week. Homs is about 30 miles south of Hama, but it is much more important as it connects Damascus, the capital, to the coastline where Russian military bases are located. Al Jazeera reported that last night, Russia bombed the Rastan Bridge along the key M5 highway linking Hama to Homs in an attempt to prevent HTS from attacking Homs. However, the airstrikes were merely to support the infantry on the ground. Russian fighter jets continued to target HTS positions, but the rebels faced little resistance on the ground, allowing them to advance rapidly. The situation seems grim, with reports stating that Syrian army units have begun withdrawing from Homs ahead of anticipated heavy fighting. In another concerning development, the entire Syrian military is being ordered to retreat and concentrate on defending the capital Damascus and the surrounding areas, as well as the Latakia coastline. The Syrian army has also suddenly withdrawn from the city of Deir Zezer, effectively conceding the city to the Kurdish forces backed by Turkey. This means the Syrian army has handed over a series of cities to HTS rebels and Kurdish forces without any fighting. Currently, the rebel groups are approaching the provincial capital of Homs after easily capturing nearby cities like Rastan and Tel Bisa, just 10 kilometers from Homs, despite support from Russian aerospace forces in the form of airstrikes. It can be seen that while the loss of Aleppo by President Assad's government may have been attributed to unexpected factors, the capture of Hama by rebel groups can no longer be considered a surprise. Worse, HTS has continued to easily capture additional strongholds. This raises serious questions about the combat effectiveness of the Syrian army. If HTS captures Homs, it will push the Syrian government to the brink of disaster, especially after HTS leader Jolani told CNN today that their ultimate goal is to capture the capital, Damascus, overthrow Assad's regime, and build a new Syria. After the fall of Aleppo, President Assad had the opportunity to avoid a fate similar to Afghanistan's government if he could have secured Kurdish support, backed by Turkey. However, to capitalize on this support, President Assad must first halt HTS advance in Homs before it's too late. However, there's uncertainty about the fighting will of the Syrian army after a series of cities fell so quickly. If the strategic city of Homs collapses, it will serve as a death knell for Assad's regime. The Syrian civil war began in 2011 due to the Arab Spring, resulting in rebellions and protests, compounded by religious and ethnic divisions that made Syria extremely chaotic. The decade-long conflict is partly due to deep divisions between opposition ethnic groups, supported by Western countries, and Russia and Iran, which have backed Assad's government. There's significant debate surrounding the outbreak of this new conflict in Syria. On December 2nd, Turkey's foreign minister was quoted by The Guardian, stating that the crisis in Syria was a result of President Assad's refusal to engage in political dialogue with the opposition, not external intervention. In contrast, Iran blames Israeli intervention for the crisis, claiming that terrorist groups in Syria are linked to the U.S. and Israel, such as the Syrian Democratic Forces, a Kurdish majority group operating in eastern Syria, which has ties to the Kurdistan Workers' Party PKK, a group supported by the U.S. Turkey regards the PKK as a terrorist organization, and removing its presence along the Syria-Turkey border is considered essential for Turkey's security. It is important to note that the Kurdish issue was one of the reasons why Turkey opposed Sweden and Finland's NATO membership. The question arises, would the Iranian military come to the rescue of the Syrian army, and if so, how would Turkey and Israel respond to this? Could it lead to a direct conflict between them and Iran and Syria? One reality is that, at this time, Iran's influence has weakened in Gaza and Lebanon, so Tehran cannot afford to see its power diminish further in Syria if Assad's regime were to be overthrown. For Iran, protecting President Assad's government is crucial, as Syria provides a direct link between Tehran and Hezbollah. For Russia, maintaining its military presence in Syria is also very important, as it strengthens Moscow's influence over Middle Eastern affairs and gives Russia its largest overseas military base in Syria. Therefore, both Iran and Russia support the Assad regime and may be willing to provide large-scale assistance to the Syrian military. Given the urgency of the situation, The Guardian reports that both Russia and Iran are calling for a summit between Turkey, Iran, and Russia to discuss a compromise and initiate a political process in Syria with the participation of all sides, including the current opposition and representatives of Assad's government. Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov also confirmed plans to meet with his Iranian and Turkish counterparts on the sidelines of the Doha Forum this weekend, and this may be the last opportunity for a political solution in Syria. However, for this plan to become a reality, at least in theory, the Syrian army must prevent the attack by the rebel groups. Because if President Assad's power collapses, he will naturally have nothing to negotiate with the opposition. Thus, it all hinges on whether the HTS rebels can quickly capture the strategic city of Homs. According to The Guardian, both Iran and Russia are urging Turkey to convince the rebel groups, including the Kurdish forces it supports, to halt the attack before it leads to Syria's division, causing Assad to lose power and allowing the country to fall into the hands of extremist groups. It can be said that the current chaos in Syria largely stems from Assad's failure to negotiate with Turkish President Erdogan. Observers suggest that Turkey has supported the HTS-led attack, even though the country denies this. Of course, Turkey has the most motivation to support HTS's offensive, as they believe President Assad has repeatedly rejected their efforts to ensure a political solution within Syria, including an agreement for hundreds of thousands of Syrian refugees who fled to Turkey to return home. It's worth noting that over 2 million people fled to Turkey during the 2011 civil war. Additionally, President Erdogan wants President Assad to grant federal autonomy to the Kurdish forces supported by Turkey, similar to the model in Bosnia. As part of this, the Syrian and Turkish armies would coordinate attacks against the PKK, a Kurdish group supported by the U.S. Unfortunately, President Assad rejected negotiations based on this plan, demanding that Erdogan withdraw all Turkish forces from Syria and stop supporting the rebel groups backed by Turkey. Furthermore, Assad ordered an attack on the city of Idlib, a stronghold of the opposition in Syria. This has caused thousands of people to flee to the Turkish border, resulting in a serious refugee crisis in Turkey and causing significant political loss for President Erdogan and his party at home. As a result, Erdogan sought to break the deadlock through the latest HTS-led offensive, capitalizing on Russia's distraction in Ukraine and Iran's weakening due to its tit-for-tat conflict with Israel. At this point, the battle for Homs is considered to be decisive for Assad's fate, and the HTS rebels could quickly advance toward the capital, Damascus. The only chance to prevent this dangerous scenario is for Assad to immediately make political concessions to the opposition. It could be said that the collapse of several Syrian cities in the past week could have been avoided if Assad had compromised by accepting the draft constitution prepared by Russia in 2017, which took the interests of the opposition into account. Unfortunately, Assad rejected it, claiming that there were too many concessions attached. The Guardian also mentioned that since January 2017, 22 meetings have been held to discuss Syria's political future, but Turkey believes that Syria's stubbornness has led to a lack of progress in the talks. So, how should Assad compromise at this point? According to Russia, Assad's government should grant autonomy to the Kurdish forces supported by Turkey in northern Syria, as Erdogan desires to end the war. Additionally, the coastal areas with a population of Alawite Muslims could also be granted autonomy. The Arab League's peacekeeping forces may be deployed along the front lines between the Syrian army and HTS to prevent further rebel attacks in the future. However, if the peacekeepers are deployed, President Assad will be forced to commit to expelling Iranian and Hezbollah forces from Syria, which is nearly impossible. Of course, Assad could still reject any peace proposals from Russia as he did in 2017. However, unlike in 2017, the Syrian president can no longer rely on Iran, as the country is also weakening. If Syria continues to refuse a deal, Russia could punish Assad's government by refusing to offer him asylum in Moscow if he is overthrown. The Assad government appears to be on the brink. With Russia bogged down in Ukraine, Moscow will find it difficult to exert military influence over Syria. Furthermore, on the diplomatic front, Syria's collapse would make Kiev and its Western allies believe that Russia is weakening, as it would be unable to protect its important ally. However, from another perspective, the events in Syria are unlikely to have a broader regional impact. They will not help Ukraine regain the situation on the Donbas battlefield or change Trump's stance on Ukraine. For Russia, the Kremlin also wants the Syrian conflict to end by the time Trump returns to office. Pushing the Assad government to negotiate with the opposition will also help the U.S. retain some influence over northeastern Syria through the Kurdish forces supported by the U.S. Therefore, Trump might be more inclined to make concessions to Putin on the Ukraine issue. This concludes our program for today. Thank you for your attention, and we look forward to seeing you in our next episodes.